Hello and welcome back to Back Corner Comics. Today we're going to be talking about Hellblazer by Jamie Delano Omnibus Volume 1, which is, of course, as you can tell, a John Constantine centric story. So I'm sure most of you who are watching this know about John Constantine, but he was essentially introduced in the pages of Swamp Thing. He is from, I believe, Newcastle, England. He's an English magician, if you will. He's a bit of a charlatan and a rogue and a womanizer and maybe not so good of a philanthropist, but maybe, there's some philanthropy going on in his work. Okay. It might not be nice, but he does give some back out into the community. He is a community focused type of guy. But yeah, all jokes aside, I think this omnibus has been fun. I have not finished it. I'm about midway through. A few surprises for me in terms of the contents of the omnibus. But yeah, let's get into it. As you can tell, if you're not familiar with Dave McKean, this is a Dave McKean cover who is probably one of the most I don't really know how to describe him. He's one of the most surreal artists working within comics. If you're familiar with Batman, he did an amazing Batman story with Grant Morrison, Batman Arkham Asylum, a Serious Hell on Serious Earth, or something like that. I read that. That was like my first comic book, like American comic book was that one, and it really blew my mind, and it really set the tone for the disappointments that would follow in terms of me reading, American comics later on. But whatever, he's still really good. And as you can tell, he's like one of the best. I wasn't saying he was disappointing. I was saying he set the bar. But yeah, so as you can tell, it's a very trippy sort of dust jacket. And then once you get into it, what's so funny is I just got volume 2 in. The UPS guy just dropped it off. But yeah, the trade dress here is really good. There is John Constantine, just big heavy smoker. More Dave McKean art. Let me fix this for you. So the glare. Very cool. Very cool. So this starts off with. It's interesting. It doesn't start off with the Swamp Thing issue that Alan Moore introduced Constantine in. Well, actually, let's back up. You get two introductions here. You get one from Garth Ennis, who talks about his time writing Hellblazer and how he was introduced to writing it and kind of the, how he had to live up to Jamie Delano's run and how he wasn't trying to just replicate Jamie Delano's run, which I think is, that's the markings of like a very good writer. Garth Ennis is very out there in terms of his writing, but I think early on his stuff was very good. Not saying his newer stuff is bad. It just got a little too edgy, for me. I think Preacher's good, but then towards the end it gets like whatever. Again, that's just my opinion, but um, his writings with Constantine, I've read half of that run, and I thought it was really good. One day we'll do an overview on that as well, or a review proper. But yeah, so you get introductions here from Jamie Delano, Garth Ennis, and then issue 1 of Hellblazer. So this one's really cool. This is centered around this like demon who's like this big fly thing. Also, to backtrack real quick again, is we're getting not only the proper covers, but we're also getting the sketches, or what would eventually become the full blown cover. And DC has been doing a really good job at archiving these types of sketches and stuff within their omnibus. So shouts out to DC for the really awesome editorial stuff going on. But yeah, so I'm not a big fan of Ridgway. I don't know if that's blasphemous or not. Okay, guys, let me know. Okay. I think it's serviceable for the story, but again, I'm not huge into his art style too much. But yeah, essentially, this is a demon that gets, you know, thrown out into the world again because some dude summons it. And, I'll let you discover the story here, but it's very interesting. in no way, shape, or form is bad. I think the stories carry a lot of what I've read in terms of like John Ridgway's art style. Not too crazy about it, but John is a character who is like haunted by his past and haunted by the friends that he failed. And this first story kind of illustrates his willingness to kind of sacrifice those around him for the greater good. I don't know if he would self-sacrifice as much. I don't know. Like I really don't know his character to that capacity, because so far what I've read is he's just a very interesting character who's like a dick and who has like this really troubled past, you know? And he really knows magic, and he uses magic in a very interesting roundabout way where he doesn't actually have to do it necessarily, which I love. You know, it gives him this dynamism that I think is missing in a lot of characters in the comics world. But yeah, the colors are really good. I saw somebody talking smack about the colors here. The colors are amazing, okay? The only issue is it's just not printed on newsprint, you know? Like the Warlord Omnibus. But that's all right. Dave McKean just killing it, guys. Oh my god. Here's some of his friends that, you know, died because of him and they haunt him. And I think that's kind of like the hardest pill to swallow about this character, is that he's in constant, you know, turmoil. He's constantly being haunted by these people, a woman he loved, you know, like genuinely loved. And I don't think a character like John Constantine genuinely loves a lot of, you know, his partners. So very interesting, very sad. This story is very sad. Seeing him having to let his friend go, and that kind of like pain and remorse of that is very palpable. So one of the things that Jamie Delano does is he criticizes a lot of the capitalism that was going on in the 80s, not only in Britain but also in America too. And you can really tell with the Margaret Thatcher kind of like uh, demon on her, you know, the demon fangs and all that stuff. You know, nothing Tory can, you know, damage your health, and nothing Tory can. So that's definitely referencing, you know, that political climate in Britain at the time, which is very interesting. I would like to look more into it. And you get more of these kind of like process of the covers, which is fantastic. This story is really good. It's about like demon capitalism, you know, very fun, very cool. He walks into this like demon bar, and he's like looking around, and he's like, "Oh wow, that lampshade is really interesting." And I realized that the lampshade has a tattoo, you know, so it has this like really cool pulpy narration thing going on with all of the Jamie Delano issues that I've read. Again, we'll get to that in a second, but he realizes that it's like human skin, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I gotta get out of here," you know. So I'm sure he didn't sound like that, but you get the demons here. This one's like the resolution here is very interesting. The head demon guy is like in a sauna chilling. But this is a very like well executed omnibus in terms of build, Margaret Thatcher. In terms of build and in terms of the paper quality, it feels very good. It feels premium. You know, I think like DC in the past has struggled with that. Like I've bought deluxe editions from them before that did not feel like deluxe editions. You know, I felt like I had gotten ripped off. But here, you know, this omnibus is of quality and it's very good. This is also a really good story. This is about a family member of John Constantine. Again, like all of these Jamie Delano issues that I've read have been fantastic in terms of the writing. Like I said, John Ridgway is serviceable. You know, like that looks really good, but sometimes I just don't like the scratchiness of it, if that makes sense. I wish the lines were cleaner. But this is also like establishing what would eventually become like the Vertigo house style, in my opinion. And so you get a lot of series from Vertigo that have a similar esque type of style to it, which I am not the biggest fan of. This story is about Vietnam, and listen, buy this book, okay? Buy this book so you can read this, and then let me know what you think about it. I thought it was the best Jamie Delano issue so far. But why do I keep saying, oh, Jamie Delano, what I've read of Jamie Delano? Like the whole omnibus is Jamie Delano. Well, there is a large section of this omnibus that is Swamp Thing by one of the best American cartoonists. Okay, he's like in the top 20, I would say, and that is Rick Veitch. And so Rick Veitch took over Swamp Thing after Alan Moore left, and he's writing and drawing, which is fantastic. And all of these Swamp Thing issues are just so glorious, cool, and interesting, you know. But so a majority of this omnibus is, see, look, we're still in Swamp Thing land. Okay, here's some issues that Jamie Delano wrote, but I believe it's still circling around the Swamp Thing issue. See, more Swamp Thing. So more Swamp Thing. So a majority of this is Swamp Thing, you know, which is fine. It actually introduced me to Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing and introduced me to Swamp Thing, like kind of like in general, really, because, you know, I read like one or two issues of the Alan Moore Swamp Thing and I said, okay, this is really good, very dense, so I'll like hold off until later. And so this was kind of like my first major exposure to Swamp Thing, and I'm like thinking about getting the Nancy Collins omnibus. So it's a very good, very trippy. Like Rick Veitch's way of doing comics is not of the standard that you would see in American comics, especially at this time. Like there's characters smoking and growing pot and wanting to trip balls on, you know, the yams that grow on the back of Swamp Thing, you know. Abby, Swamp Thing's love interest, kind of like eats one in this first issue of this Swamp Thing stuff. And oh, the art is just fantastic. But she eats one of the yams, you know, and she just walks around the swamp tripping balls. You know, it's so fun and interesting. And seeing Rick Veitch's like original art too here is just a blast. But yeah, Rick Veitch is really cool because he, you know, is a very trippy guy. He lives in Vermont. He grows his own pot. You know, he's like this really chill old dude. You know, he's always been like a chill dude. Like I think he would live in like on trails and live in a cabin with Toddlebin, and they would like smoke pot and trip on shrooms and like make these really cool comics and stuff, you know. And I think that's just so fun. And you get that fun feeling going throughout this story. Everything's really connected. This issue, I'm going to spoil a little bit, but this issue is dealing with so many things, man. It's like, it's dealing with like three different things at the same time. Like every page flip is dealing with another like plot development in the individual 2001: A Space Odyssey reference, but it's dealing with like different things: Swamp Thing, Constantine, Abby, and then during all of this, Batman is in the background doing some stuff, and you're like, okay, that's like kind of random, you know, like we're just seeing some Batman, I guess, to sell an issue. But then, of course, you know, Rick Veitch is not a hack or a fraud. And so he brings Batman into it in the coolest way possible. And it's just a lot of fun, you know. And this isn't the only fun issue either. Like he just continues to do it over and over again, you know. I'm very much looking forward to reading Rick Veitch. DC, you know, if you're watching this or anybody from DC knows anybody at DC, you know, whatever, please make a Rick Veitch omnibus and please print it in newsprint. That would be fantastic. That would be amazing, guys. Like that is I would buy that 2 times, you know. And you know, you get the Parliament of Trees thing that Alan Moore established in his run. And Rick Veitch does this really cool thing by kind of being like, well, Swamp Thing can go to space. And that shit's really cool. It's very fun, very cool. I just keep repeating myself because it's just such a blast. I'm still in the midst of reading this. So, you know, I can't say too much on it, even though I'm rambling, but I've loved the Swamp Thing stuff. I'm on this issue right here, so I'm not going to go too much into this, but I'm just going to flip ahead. But yeah, really pick this omnibus up. You know, you're getting a good smattering of John Constantine stories, but you're also getting like a large part of, like, I would say like 1/3 of the Rick Veitch Swamp Thing run. So it's really like a bang for your buck, and I was not expecting that, and I'm just having a really good time with this omnibus. Like I said, I would say pick it up. Just from what I've read, maybe it dips in quality, but I kind of doubt it. But yeah, so thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you think about Hellblazer and Swamp Thing, and what's your favorite Swamp Thing run? What's your favorite John Constantine run? I would love to know. This is Back Corner Comics, and thank you for watching.